is up, all? Wonderful to hear. I'm going to start off with a couple records that I found out about in 2012 that did not come out in 2012. Starting with the band Sinera's self-titled EP. Sinera play brutal, metallic hardcore, and the execution of these tracks are just executed with mind-boggling ferociousness, and I'm really looking forward to what they're going to do with a full-on long-form LP. The second album is from the band Tahil, and the album For His Satanic Majesty's Glory. Tahil are from Indiana, and they play a mixture of blackened death metal, doom, and sludge, and this is probably one of the filthiest things I've heard all year. Really looking forward to what these guys have going on in the future. And the third album is from the band Young and in the Way, and the album I Am Not What I Am. And they play blackened crust with a mixture of brutal metallic hardcore. Just an amazing, amazing sound these guys have created. And if you're a fan of Amoebic's older work, this is definitely an album that will give your head a beating. As far as hip-hop is concerned, there is actually 2 hip-hop records that came out this year that have really gotten to me. Starting with LP's Cancer for Cure. LP is from New York, and if you like sci-fi, left-field hip-hop that requires a lot of thinking on your behalf, this is definitely a LP that I recommend. The next is from the band Death Grips and the album The Money Store. Death Grips are from Sacramento, California, and they play a style that reminds me a lot of grindcore, and it's a hip-hop act, if that makes any sense whatsoever. Every time I listen to these guys, I think of Cattle Decapitation, Pig Destroyer, Wormrot, and bands of that nature. For some reason, I think it's due to the vocalist raspy, dirty, spitting style. But if you're into hip-hop that really can't be defined at all, this is definitely an album I highly recommend. I highly recommend their older work as well, especially if you're into old 80s hardcore and old 80s punk rock riffs. Yeah, definitely peep out Death Grips. And some EPs that really shook me up this year. I have 5, actually, starting with the band Rad and their EP/demo entitled This Is Not a Final War. And I saw these guys open for another band, and I really didn't think much of them because I was stereotyping due to the title of their band, Rad. I'm like, what hipster bullshit is this going to be? I couldn't be more completely fucking wrong. They have a female vocalist to start, and they spit out these blistering, fast, sloppy punk rock songs. And when I got this EP, I would listen to it over and over and over and over and over for hours. And the entire EP is, I believe it's like 8 songs in 4.5 minutes or something like that. So definitely peep out this band Rad. They're from Sacramento, California. Next up is Head Cleaner and their EP Resistance, Determination, and the Sheer Will to Overcome. Head Cleaner are from Greece, and if you're a fan of Napalm Death, old Napalm Death, this EP is just an amazing treat. This EP actually opened up my eyes to the political strifes going on over in Greece right now, and definitely peep these guys out. The next EP is from the band Skinfather and their EP entitled Atheos. They play brutal, metallic hardcore in the vein of the Holy Terror sound. So if you're a fan of Ringworm, Integrity, and bands of that nature, this is definitely a band that I highly recommend you peeping out. For instance, the opening track is John Lennon's Imagine. And it starts off with John Lennon's Imagine, and it plays without any interruption. It's just the original track. And slowly, these sneering guitars come creeping up from the bottom, and they're slithering their way through this track. And I believe like 30 seconds in, Skinfather takes full charge and just demolishes that track and transforms into an entirely new track. And that's just the intro track, and this album is so ridiculously catchy and demented, and I highly recommend y'all checking this out as well. The next is from the band Oblivionized and their EP Nullify the Cycle. They're from the UK, and with each new release, Oblivionized gets even more complex. They get even more crusty, and there's even more influences thrown in to their sound. And I really can't get enough of this band. I think that they are absolutely brilliant, and every musician within this band is playing with such a fascinating ability. How they manage to hold it all together makes absolutely no sense to me. Definitely peep out Oblivionized. My fucking god, just a great, amazing band from the UK. And next is from the band Plague Widow and their self-titled EP. Plague Widow are from Sacramento, California, my hometown, and they play a style that really can't be defined. It's a cross between blackened death metal and this very bizarre spiraling sound that the only other band I know of that plays this style is the band Portal. So if you're a fan of Portal and a fan of death metal and a fan of the apocalyptic sound, I highly recommend listening to Plague Widow. My fucking god. Just an amazing EP. Amazing. So my top LPs of 2012, and I happen to really like the new Deftones record, and I believe this album offers up something new within their catalog. As with every record of theirs, it's a little different than every other record, and this album is a bit darker than the others. You can definitely hear the influence of Quicksand and the influence of their temporary bassist. A lot of these tracks just remind me of tracks off the Quicksand album Slip, and like I said, it's a darker record, but it's so majestic sounding. It's so almost gothic sounding at times, and it's even harder than most of the stuff they've ever done at the same time. For some strange reason, it just makes me think of having my first crush in high school and bringing up all these memories when I listen to this record. So, needless to say, I listen to this record a lot just to reminisce about younger, earlier times. Cattle Decapitation's Monolith of Inhumanity. Cattle Decapitation are from San Diego, and they play brutal death grind. And the funny thing about Cattle Decapitation, they're from San Diego, and I always think of San Diego. I've been to San Diego, and it's just a beautiful landscape. And Cattle Decapitation are a truly ugly, fucked off band. And I always like that aesthetic, but all nonsense aside, this album pushes even harder than anything else in their catalog. It's a brutal grindcore record, just amazing musicianship. Next is Converge, All We Love We Leave Behind. Converge are from Salem, Massachusetts, and this is another band with another album in their catalog that sounds nothing like anything else in their catalog, and again are just pushing the boundaries on their own sound. And if you're unfamiliar with Converge, they play metallic hardcore, but their sound changes up so very often, just within a single track, that you're constantly being fed new riffs, new ideas, like hundreds of times over throughout a record. The next is The Sequence of Prime and the LP Inter. The Sequence of Prime is a one-man band. He plays all of the instruments, and he creates this very obscure, rabid, apocalyptic, sci-fi, savage sound that continues a story from the first LP into Enter, and just leaves me waiting for what comes next in this story. There's actually a musical cliffhanger on the end of this record, in my opinion. I don't know if it was intended to be that way, but it feels like this huge cliffhanger, like, what the fuck's gonna happen next? And we gotta wait, I don't know, a couple years until there's a new Sequence of Prime, and I'm awaiting that wholeheartedly. The next is Pig Destroyer, Book Burner, and I was reading online, and there's a lot of people that do not like this record for whatever reason. Yes, it's not what I expected either. I hear that a lot. This isn't what I wanted from Pig Destroyer. It's a cleaner record and yada yada yada. But it's art grind in they're being described as. So art should evolve, and this album definitely evolved, including a book that comes with the CD and LP that goes along with the story of Book Burner, and the lyrics to the tracks go along with the story from Book Burner. And I love the whole package. I love the artwork in the liner notes. I love the entire record. It's probably their easiest listening record, their most easily digestible record, but it's fun to listen to, and I go to it a lot. Next is Unsane Wreck. Unsane are from New York, and they play noise metal. And I've been a fan of Unsane for a long, long time, and they've had a couple misses, in my opinion. Those misses were other people's targets, and really love those records. But this album, I really feel that their heart is like full on in it, doing their old school style. This is totally off subject, but me and my wife bought bunk beds for my 2 kids, and we got this puzzle to put together, all these pieces of this bunk bed, and I just put Unsane's Wreck on repeat and listened to that album over and over and over for 5 hours, and I still couldn't get enough of it. For like a month, I couldn't get enough of it. Just a really great noise metal record. Next is Rat Damage, Cursed. Rat Damage are from Sacramento, California, and they play really crusty, old school hardcore punk, 80s style hardcore punk. And if you're into that really drugged out sound, it gives me visions of like alleyways with needles lying all over the ground, and just a really foobar, fucked off punk rock band that plays that style that every fucking fan of metal should at least learn about, and that's the crustier side of punk rock. The next is from the band Pallbearer, Sorrow and Extinction. Pallbearer from Arkansas, and they are a mixture of sludge and doom filtered through Alice in Chains. Now, that alone sounds cool as fuck. Sludge, doom, filtered through Alice in Chains. But it's even better than that. This album, for some reason, is enlightening for me. And the payoff with these longer tracks pay off tenfold, waiting while these waves of riffs come crashing down. Next is Harp, Husks. Harp are from New Orleans, and I was a bit skeptical when I got this record, because unlike The Filth, their first LP, these tracks on these tracks on Husks were upwards of 15 minutes length for each track. So I get a bit skeptical, because a lot of bands that have this long form in the length of tracks really add a lot of stuff that shouldn't even be there. And with this album, that wasn't the case whatsoever. The build-up and the payoff all worked so well together within this very crusty, ugly, just sludge metal sound. Next up is the band Tragedy and the album Darker Days Ahead. Tragedy are a crust, punk, metal, sludge band, and it's another band, if you're a fan of that amoebic sound, you will definitely fall in love with Tragedy's new record, Darker Days Ahead. There's a lot of interesting guitar work on this record that really, really gets me going. And someone told me these guys are on tour with Neurosis, and that would be an amazing band, amazing show, Neurosis with Tragedy. But yeah, definitely peep out Tragedy's Darker Days Ahead if you're into Amoebics or even Neurosis, sludge metal, and just a really crusty sound. Next up is Murder Construct Results. Murder Construct are from Los Angeles, and this is an amazing super group of grindcore musicians coming together and creating this fucked off grindcore record. This is a completely damaged sounding grindcore record, and I hardly ever say this about grindcore records, but it's so hard and so fast that it's unbearable at times, and that's exactly why I love this record. At least one reason why I love this record. The closing track on this record actually made me view death in a completely different manner, just in the way the closing track is executed with piano and cello, etc. Just fucking amazing grindcore record. Definitely peep this album out. I can't get enough of this. I can't believe an album this amazing came out in 2012. And next up is Dragged into Sunlight, Widowmaker. Dragged into Sunlight are from the UK, and this album is another album that's long form, so I was a bit skeptical, even though I'm a huge Dragged into Sunlight fan. And this album is very, very different than Hatred for Mankind. All of the aesthetics are still there within this mixture of blackened death / sludge. They're a bit more spread out. There's a certain lingering that creeps into the psyche when listening to this record. These riffs that linger just creep in and just tear your shit apart. This is easily the ugliest, most fucked off thing I have heard in 2012 that came out in 2012. I highly recommend this record. I heard it just got released on LP, and I want to get it on LP. It's on white LP. Yada yada yada. Definitely peep out Dragged into the Sunlight's Widowmaker. Just a fucked off record. And my number one record of 2012 was by the band DePhosphorus and their album entitled Night Sky Transform. And they play what they call Astro Grind. There's a lot of scientific themes going on, and it's mixed with this grindcore meets power violence meets death metal, etc. I had a slight beef with the production on this record. It's quite different than Axiom, their self-titled debut, which was so ridiculously raw. And this album, at first, just had a very, very different production style that I really haven't heard anything that sounded quite like this production-wise. It's a bit more sterile than Axiom, but it's still very ugly layered right on top of that sterileness. And the more and more I listened to this, the more and more I fell in love with these riffs, with the style in which these tracks were executed, the whole story behind this record. This is just the best record altogether in 2012, in my opinion. So definitely peep this record out. As always, check out the description box below where I'll have links to all of these bands for you to check out and form your own opinion about, and either talk shit or agree with me about. This was a fucking hard list to make, I tell you. But thank you all for watching. Thank you all for subscribing. And I'll see a whole lot more of you in 2013.